Welcome everyone to Sielox webinar. Glad you could join us today. This is Mark Evans at Sielox. Joining me today is CEO Karen Evans. We had great response from our webinar on April 1st with a guided tour, operated tour of Pinnacle. We received some feedback on some additional topics, plus there's a lot more that we can have a deeper dive into today. So Karen, it's all yours. We'll take some Q&A later on for anything you may have some questions on. So look forward to hearing your responses. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, everyone. And for those of you that participated in April, welcome back. And for anyone that missed that one, welcome to your first review of the Pinnacle software. I'm going to be going through a number of topics today. I'm going to start with time zones and access levels and migrate through filters and filter assignments and alarms, and time permitting get to some other topics. But I'm going to be presenting for about 45 minutes. I have everyone on mute right now, and then we're going to open it up at the end for about 15 minutes of questions and answers. So thank you again, everyone, for your time, and sit back and enjoy the tour. So for starters, we're going to start in the time zone screen. The time zone screen is where you're going to configure time, and just about every function in the system can be controlled by time, whether it's the time that you want to have a door scheduled to be unlocked, whether it's the time that you want to monitor maybe some door contacts that are on doors that don't have card readers, but maybe are fire exit doors. It might be the time that you want to have an input that goes active, trigger an output. Or multiple outputs, and each of those outputs could have a different time associated with it, whether it's a buzzer or a camera or a light or anything like that. So time is really critical in the entire system. Also part of the time zone screen is the holidays. So I'll review the holidays and how the holidays are set up as well. In a brand new Pinnacle system, there are 2 time zones that are pre-configured and defaulted. An always time zone and a never time zone. And those are probably 2 of the most commonly used time zones. Beyond that, everything is configurable to meet your requirements at your individual locations. So if I was going to start a new time zone right now, and I'll call this our Sielox test time zone. So I'm giving it a name. Once I give it a name, I'm going to decide when do I want this time zone to be active or be applied to something to make it active, or be applied to something when it's going to turn things on or off, or whether it's going to grant or deny access. So I might want it to be Monday to Friday. Maybe that's the time I want a door to be unlocked. So I've given it a name, and on the right below the name, there are up to 8 intervals. If I'm only going to do time between 9 and 5, I'm actually only going to use 1 interval. If it's going to be the days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I select those days like I did now, putting the check boxes in them. And then I can come over here and say from 8 to 5, it defaulted to that, so I don't have to modify it. Maybe I wanted it till 6 o'clock. So I'm now putting in 1800. Everything we do is in military time, so you don't have to worry about is it 8 a.m. or is it 8 p.m. 8 o'clock is going to be 8 a.m. If it was 8 p.m., it would be 2000. So in this case, it's 1800, and it's going to go from 8 in the morning until 6 at night, Monday through Friday. If I wanted to have it so that it was not going to work on holidays, I would not check the holiday button. But if I wanted access or something to be turned on between 8 and now 6 o'clock on holidays, I would actually check the holidays. And now if I had a holiday that fell on a Wednesday, that 8 to 6 time frame is also going to apply to the holiday. If I don't want it to apply on a holiday, then the boxes remains unchecked and it will not include holidays. If I want my 8 to 6 to include Saturdays and Sundays, or maybe just Saturdays, I check the Saturday box. If I don't want it to be Saturdays, but I want it to be Sundays, I check just the Sunday box. If I want it to be every day of the week, Monday through Sunday, including holidays, I would have all the boxes checked. But for the most part, if you're doing things during the week, you're not going to include your Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, especially if you're going to be closed during any holidays. If you happen to be a hospital or a college campus or something like that, where the campus really doesn't close on the holidays, you would then include holidays in it, or maybe you don't even configure holidays into your system because you're not concerned about holidays. If I want something to cross midnight, let's say I want this to be, this maybe is going to be an after hours time zone now, rather than Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 to 5, I'm now going to make this go from maybe 8 o'clock at night. So I'm going to start it at 8 o'clock at night, and I'm going to take it till midnight. So I'm going to take it to 2400. And that's going to be my first interval. And maybe that's going to be Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And I want it to cross midnight on those days as well. So I'm going to choose my second interval. And my second interval is going to start at 4 zeros. 2400 and 4 zeros is the exact same time. So you will not even miss a single second. And I want this now to go till 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to choose from midnight till 8 a.m. And I also want that then to be maybe Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And then I could hit save on this. And that's a time zone now that's going to cross midnight on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Maybe that's when the cleaners are coming in, and they're the 3 days of the week that they actually work. Maybe they actually work a different schedule on Thursdays and Fridays. So I'm now going to go to interval number 3. And interval number 3, I'm going to choose Thursdays and Fridays, and they don't start at 8 on these days. Maybe they start at 10 o'clock on these days, go until midnight. And then in the 4th interval for Thursday and Friday, I'm going to start at 2400, and I'm going to go till maybe, I'm going to start it at 4 zeros, and I'm going to go to maybe 0600. So now I've got 2 different sets of time associated with the different days of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is going to go from 8 until 8, crossing the midnight hour. Thursdays and Fridays is going to go from 10 until 6 in the morning. So I've now created a new time zone. So it's extremely flexible. If you need even more flexibility, it does have up to 8 intervals that you can apply to any individual time zone. Once I've created this time zone, it can be applied to when doors are going to be unlocked, when people are allowed to gain access through doors, when you want to monitor alarm points. So any of the devices that are configured or the card holders that are enrolled can have times associated with all the different capabilities that you program into the system. There is no limit to the number of time zones that you could create. Just be aware it's really good to keep a really good naming scheme. So in this case, I labeled it Sielox Test Time Zone, probably not a good name. I might want to relabel that and call it my after hours, my monitoring hours, my cleaners hours, and give it something far more descriptive. So when you want to apply it to something, it's easy to find it off the list, especially if you create a lot of time zones. Like I said, there's no limit to the number of time zones that you can create in the system, and then apply those time zones to all the different functions available in all the programming screens. We also have holidays in here. You can have up to 32 holidays programmed in. You can put not only the date, but a description of what that holiday is. And you'll notice here I have a few holidays here that have expired a while ago. So I probably don't need them in here anymore, so I can highlight any one of those and hit delete. Select another one from 2017. I'm deleting that one. If I wanted to create a new holiday, I just hit the new tab, And then I can choose the date. It defaulted to today. So let's pick, I already have Labor Day in for this year. Let's pick, let's go into next year. But in case I have anybody up in the Boston area, I'm going to pick April 1st for Patriots Day and then give that a name. And I've now created a new time zone, or excuse me, a new holiday that can be applied to any of the time zones that you've got configured in the system. So up to 32 can be in here at any given time. You can modify them. I could go in and change this date, giving you the calendar drop-down list. Maybe this one is going to be August 4th as an example, and hit save. So that gives you a sort of an overview of your time zones and your holidays. In the previous webinar that we did, we talked about devices, and we had doors and readers and inputs and outputs and card holders all enrolled into the system. So I'm assuming that that has already been created. So now we're going to go into the access levels. An access level is a combination of, could be an individual or multiple devices, could be one door or multiple doors. It could have the same time at one or all the doors, and could have one person or multiple people. So an access level is a group of devices, a group of time, and a group of people. How we go about creating a new access level, I'm going to go in and create a new one here, and this is going to be my maybe for my new employees. So I've created a one called New Employees, given it a name. Once I give it a name, on the left side of the screen are all of your card readers listed in the system. So if you have 2 doors or you have 200 doors, they will all be listed here. If you have more than about 20 doors in your system, you will have a scroll bar on the right that will allow you to scroll down and see all the devices, all those card readers in your entire system. So that's on the left. Below that is the time zones available. So here's the whole list of time zones that have already been created in my system. It defaults up here to always. And on the right are the readers that I'm going to actually put into this access level. So how I can do it a number of different ways. I can just double click on this one on the left, and it's going to assume the time that's associated with it at the bottom. But I might not want always for this particular group. So I'm going to say from 7:30 till 5:10 for my new employees. They can get in the cafeteria. They can get in the main entrance. They can go out the exit reader at the main entrance because I want to track who's leaving the building, maybe because you've got muster reports that you want to run. And just by double clicking on that, it's grabbing the time that was sitting down below and now has put those 3 readers into this access group with the times associated with it on the right. If I had a situation where maybe I made a mistake on the time, I can just move my cursor over here to one of these time zones that's already listed here, and you'll see it gives me a drop-down list. Maybe on this particular one, I want to change this one to 8 o'clock instead of 7:30, and it's going to 5:15 instead of 5:10. Or maybe this particular one, I did not want the exit reader part of this group. I'm not tracking their exiting for whatever reason. I can highlight it and hit remove. So on the left is my available readers. On the right is my readers that are included in this particular access group. If I wanted to include all of these readers that are on the left into this group using the time zone that's down below, I'm just using the control function now, and I've selected 3 of them and I'm adding them across, or I'm using the shift for both of them and I'm adding them across. Or I want this one removed, I'm highlighting it and I'm moving it over, or I'm coming over here and I'm modifying a time on this particular one. So real flexible. On the left is what's available to you. What's on the right is what you've included in this access group, as well as the times that anybody that you put into this particular group is allowed to get through these doors. Now, you might be creating a new access group, but you've already got maybe 100 or maybe thousands of cardholders already in your system, and you've created a new group, and there's a number of people that you want to put into this new access group that you just created, but you don't want to have to go and let me hit save here for a second. You don't want to have to go and touch every single card record and now go assign this access level to them. So to speed up that process, you'll notice that there are 4 tabs on the top. A reader tab, which is the one I've been working on. There's an output tab that I'll come back to in a second. There's an input control tab, and then there's a cardholder tab. If I select the cardholder tab, it now gives me the list of all the cardholders in your system in alphabetical order. And I can now go through here, and I'm going to use some control functions here, and I'm just highlighting the people that I'm going to now put into this particular group and add them over. So I've just added 5 people into this group called new employees. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to leave this screen for a second and go over to the cardholder screen, and I'm going to go find Evans because I just put myself into that. And you'll notice here in the access level list, Evans was added, was given this new access level. But I didn't have to go to this screen to do it. I was doing it all right from the access level setup screen. If I decided that a particular individual is not going to be part of this group, I just highlight it and hit remove. And maybe I come back over here and I've got a few other people that I want to put in here. And now I'm hitting the shift button and I'm now adding all 5 of these over. Maybe this one I didn't want. So quick and easy to add them individually, using your, just individually double clicking on them, selecting in a group of individuals on the control or a group that are in order on the shift functions. I jumped over the output control screen here. This is often used for elevator applications. So if you do have elevators in your building and you're controlling who can go to certain floors and certain elevators, maybe these new employees can only get to the 4th floor. So I'm going to double click on the 4th floor button. They would use their card at the reader in the elevator, and the only floor selection button available to them is the 4th floor button. Maybe I also need them on the 5th floor, so I've now enabled the 5th floor button. If whatever we were doing on the 5th floor is no longer going to be used by this group, I just highlight it and I hit remove. I'm removing them individually. If I have more of them over here and I wanted to remove all of them, I just hit the remove all, and I've now taken any floor selection access away from anyone that I put into this particular group. On this screen, the input control screen, it's not used by a lot of customers, but it's got some unique capabilities to it. If you have areas where you have motion sensors in storage areas or in warehouses, or maybe things that you're monitoring, maybe not through the burglar alarm panel, but you're monitoring it through your access control panel with us, and you want to be able to shunt those points based on a valid card read. I've got a motion sensor. I could say that anyone in this access group that presents a card to a particular reader that's in close proximity to this motion, maybe in the warehouse, it's going to shunt this motion. In the setup screen for the motion, you're going to decide what's the time that this can be shunted. Maybe it's only 9 to 5. So now we're going to apply a 9 to 5 time zone to this particular motion sensor based on someone's access level, allowing it to be shunted for a designated period of time. Or maybe it's shunted on an inbound reader and it's unshunted on an exit reader. So you're not relying on time now, but you're relying on the transactions of the card reader entering, shunning it for the period of time until they actually present a card to an exit reader and unshunt that and bring it back into the system. So there is some flexibility there to do some, what I would call alarm monitoring conditions that's built into the software. You may or may not be using that, or may not even have known that that capability is actually built into the system, but the flexibility is there to do that. The one thing in the access level screen that I jumped past and didn't really elaborate on here, I have a group of new employees here. I'm not going to privilege them. However, if I go over here, let's save our changes to that. If I go over here to find maybe an access group that I've referred to as all readers, or maybe it's an access group for my first responders, you'll notice my first responders, I've got a checkbox that they're privileged. Or if I go to the 24/7 privileged, all access privileged, they are checked. What this allows you to do is to say, maybe you're going into a lockdown or going into an emergency, and you want to not only lock all your doors, but you want to block access to your readers. So to show you how to do that, we reviewed it in the previous one, but I'm going to go into my user actions here, and I'm going to go select maybe all of my readers, and I am going to block my readers. So I've got readers that are going to be blocked now, and if I go back to my access levels, anyone that has a checkbox that is privileged will still be able to get past that reader based on their time that has been assigned to them, and anyone that is not in a privileged category, their card will be denied and a blocked event will show up on your event viewer. So it allows you to control, maybe you've got a bomb threat, you've got a chemical spill, you've got something where you don't want people to get into a particular area to keep them safe and out of that. You can go in and block access to those readers and then still allow your first responders or your security staff, your privileged card holders to still get through that particular reader while everybody else is denied. The next thing that I'm going to cover is going to be filters. Filters is really the crux of our whole system. Every single event that occurs in our system is sent to the server for display, for archiving, for reporting. There is tremendous flexibility in the filters, and give you an idea of how the filters work. You would start with a filter, give it a name. With a brand new system, there are no predefined filters. They're created from scratch. And you can group things into things that are common that you want to report on together, that you want to control or manage together, that you want to take actions on together, rather than having to do everything individually. You might want to see or view just certain things. I might want to view just Evan's activity, or I might want to view just the loading dock activity, or I might want to view just invalid card activity. So every single event that happens in the system, like I said, is sent to the server. Once it's sent to the server, the filters now can separate those out, and then they can be used for other functions. To give you an idea of the granularity in the system, I'm going to just create a new one here today, and I'm going to call this my June 3rd, I'm a day ahead, my June 3rd filter. So I've got a June 3rd filter. I wanted to name it just to show you the detail on the granularity on the types of things that you can filter. On the top left, under the filter name, are what we call groups and objects. These are all the things that are in the system: your card readers, your locks, your door contacts, your motion sensors, your panic buttons, your workstations, your people, your card holders, your operators that operate the Pinnacle system, your controllers, your main controllers, your terminal controllers, your groups of devices. So on the left is all of your groups or objects. On the right side are all the events that can happen at any one of those groups or objects. So for example, if I go into the doors and hit the plus and open that up, here on the left, all of my doors that I've got configured in my demo system. On the right, on the top, is all of my door events. If I hit that plus arrow and open this up, you'll see how granular we get on tracking door events. So I can know if we've got communication lost, if we've got a door that was activated by a user, if the door was added, if it was physically closed, the contact closed, if the cable to it got cut, if somebody deleted a door off the device tree, not a good idea, unless you've removed that door from the system. Door forced open, someone was forgiven anti-pass back because you're tracking in and out, maybe for time and attendance or maybe for mustering because you've got chemicals or other things and you want to make sure people got out of a building, or you're in a lockdown and you want to make sure everyone is safe. Door left open, the door was locked. It was locked by an operator. It was locked by an input. It was locked by a time zone. It was locked by toggle. That would be if you're using wireless doors and we allow you to toggle it. Just like having a key in your hand, you could, if you have the capability to toggle the door, you could unlock the door or relock the door, overriding the schedule, just like you were sitting in front of the screen and doing that. Maybe the door was modified with a name. It was momentarily unlocked by a user. It was opened. Privacy modes are things that are tied to wireless locks. First person rule we're tracking. Maybe you're using first person rule. Some people call it a snow day, but not every state in the country gets snow. So we refer to it as first person rule, but you could set it up where you might have the door scheduled to be unlocked between 8 and 5, but nobody got there before 8 o'clock because there was a accident on the highway blocking access to the building, or maybe it was a snowstorm. So now your door will not go into an unlock schedule because the first person has not arrived yet. So just giving you an idea of some of the granularity that we're tracking just on the door. I never did the count here, but there's probably 50 different events that can occur at a door based on the door contact, based on the request to exit device, and based on the lock. Your reader events are not part of this because we track reader events separately. So for example, in here, and again, it's alphabetically listed. So my readers, scroll down further. Here's my readers. All my readers in the system are listed on the left. They usually would have the same name as your doors. And over on the right are my reader events. Here's all the events that you can filter. Someone was admitted, they were denied, they were already in or already out because you're tracking anti-pass back. They used an expired card, their card was blocked. You're using card and PIN. They used the wrong PIN or an incorrect PIN. They tried to use the door at the wrong time. So you see, even the unknown card gets displayed. So all of these are different events that happen at a particular reader. Other events would be your main controller or your terminal controller is online or offline. If you wanted to know that, filters could be created to push that information to your alarm screen, or maybe even to an email. So all of your groups and objects on the left, all of your events on the right. If I wanted to attach some events to my readers right now, I can do it in a number of different ways. Maybe I'm looking for all admitted events just into the cafeteria. So I'm just dragging it over and dropping it on the cafeteria, and down below it's now saying cafeteria is admitted as part of this filter. Or maybe I want all reader events at the boardroom. So I don't care what event it is, but I want any event that happens at the boardroom to be part of this filter. Or maybe I want all of my readers, and the only thing I want to know about on every single reader is I want to know that I've got blocked events at every single reader. So left to right or right to left. Maybe I want to go in here and say I want access denied because I want some of my exceptions now. I want inactive. I want wrong time, and I want those three now for all of my readers. So now they've been applied. If I decide that as I'm building this filter and I've got this one included that I really don't want to be part of this filter, I highlight it and I'm going to hit delete from the binding. I'm not deleting all of them. I'm only deleting the highlighted one. So now this filter that I've named June 3rd is going to have cafeteria admitted, and then for all the other readers, these very specific events are going to be, I'm going to be tracking as part of this particular filter. And I would hit save. The number of filters that you can create in the system is unlimited. Once you've created a filter, you can apply that filter to an event viewer. Maybe here, instead of my Runnymede events, I'm now going to go in here and say I'm going to go apply that one that I just created, that June 3rd filter I just created, give it a name, June 3, and hit OK. And now the only events that are displaying on June 3rd are the events that I put into that particular filter. So I can use a filter to apply to a viewer. I can use a filter to pull reports, but more importantly, I can use that filter and apply that filter to other functions. So now I'm going into a filter assignment screen. On the left are all the filters that you've created in your system. In the center are all the available actions besides the event viewer and your reports. All the other available actions you can use filters to perform. And then on the right would be the configurations that you've done for any of these actions. The first one at the top, called lock doors and restore, is tied to lockdown functions. Maybe you've got a panic button in the reception area, in the security office, at the CEO's desk and your senior management, at the loading dock. You've got these various panic buttons. And should anyone hit one of these panic buttons, you would put that into a filter. So you're monitoring all your panic buttons in a filter. And now I'm going to apply the function of locking doors. And I'm going to pick which doors I want to lock. So I'm going to probably say add them all, because if I have a panic going down and I've got any of these doors were scheduled to be unlocked right now, I want them all to go into a locked state. So somebody hits a panic button, all these doors are going to go locked. But you can take it a step further and say, I want to take my main entrance door and block it. And I want to take my gates and block them, or I want to take my loading dock and block that. Maybe I'm going to take the elevator and block it. These aren't tied to the system right now, so it's not giving me the choices to make that selection. But you could end up blocking access to all the readers or just a limited grouping of readers based on someone hitting a panic button. The suggestion would be that the panic button be what we call a latching button, so that when your emergency is over and you restore that button to its normal position, the software then goes and checks all the time zones in all the controllers and puts the doors back into the state that they should be in right now, several hours after you went into lockdown, and not the state that they were in when the lockdown occurred, in case there was any time zone changes that occurred between the start of the lockdown and the resume to normal operations. The unlocks, you could have a button as an example that's unlocking doors and again restoring them when the button goes back to normal operations. Not used as frequently as the unlock, but some use this for evacuations where they want to make sure that there's no power to any doors and allowing free egress and unlocking those doors in an emergency. I may want to take a filter and apply it and track it as an alarm. So if I say I'm going to track it as an alarm, there's a number of choices when we get into the alarm screen. I can say that it's always going to be an alarm every time it occurs, or it's never going to be an alarm, and it would disable it. So if you wanted to temporarily go in and disable alarms, you could do them in here in your filter screens. Maybe you've got operators that are working the software and you want them to not only handle and manage the alarm, but you want them to put comments in about how they handled it. So I could request that they put comments in here, or I could require that they put comments in when the alarm screen pops up to alert them that there's something going on. And you can also prioritize it. And the priority levels range from 1 to 99. 1 being the highest priority, 99 being the lowest priority. And if you had a level maybe 6 alarm that triggered, but now you've got a level 1 occur, it will break through and land on top of the 6. If you had a 1 that had occurred and now a 6 comes through, it will be behind the number 1 until the 1 gets handled and then the 6 becomes available. You also can have it set up where you're counting every single time this alarm, something that passes through this filter, and you want it to be an alarm. Every time it occurs, you're going to treat it as a unique alarm. Or maybe you want to just know the number of times it's occurred. So an example where you might use time and not display it every single time is maybe you've got a device that's wired in the system. There was work being done in the building. A contractor pinched one of the cables. And so now we've got a cable short on one of your contact points. And it's intermittent, happens periodically, very difficult sometimes for a technician to troubleshoot that one. But if it's happening frequently enough, you don't need to see this cable shorted event on your event viewer 20 times in an hour. But in your alarm screen, it will show you the event that's happened now 20 times. So it's keeping a track of the number of times it's occurred until you are able to get that resolved. So that would be an example where you would have it just do an account for you. But for the most part, where you're tracking invalid card activity, door forced open, door held open, things of that sort, you would definitely have those as uniques. We can now route it. So I might be routing this to every computer that's part of your system, your server as well as any of your workstations. You do have the option on your workstations to route alarms to certain workstations based on certain times, or you can also route it to certain people based on what their role is. Is it security? Is it maintenance? What is the role? And are you going to route them based on the roles that you've set up in the system? Or maybe you're going to route this. I'm going to route this to Evans, but I'm only going to route this to Evans after it has not been acknowledged, maybe after 5 minutes. So if I have a security officer that's not performing their job, not paying attention, I can now route this to the supervisor or to somebody else after X number of minutes or hours of it not being acknowledged. And what are the actions that you want to take on these alarms? So you can display instructions. You can have a unique set of instructions for every single event. So tremendous flexibility to push information on how to handle things. It just requires a lot of typing. So if it was me, I would probably have to do a talk to text because I wouldn't be able to type it fast enough to be efficient with it. But you could put in your instructions on how you want to handle any of these various alarms. You also can have an audible come through. There are some predefined WAV files, or you can also go in and create your own WAV file. So create messages using a microphone on your computer, save those WAV files, and attach those WAV files as instructions on how to handle an alarm. You can decide how frequently you want the audible to work or to go. I only want it to go once. I want to repeat it X number of times, or I want to repeat it until it gets acknowledged. And you can also decide if you want this to be a breakthrough alarm and pop up on top of your screen to bring the attention to an operator. And then you can decide what's going to be the foreground color or the background color on that particular alarm when it breaks through. So that's all the alarms on tracking it as an alarm. You might want to turn an output on based on anything that passes this filter. So maybe if it was an invalid card, maybe it was a door forced open or held open, and you want to turn on a light, you want to turn on a buzzer, you want to trigger the digital dialer that's on the burglar alarm panel, you want to trigger a camera. So any device that's wired into the system can now be turned on based on something that has passed this particular filter. What's available on the left is all of your outputs that are in the system. What's on the right would be what you're including in this particular binding based on an event that passes this particular filter. You can send an email. So maybe I'm going to send an email on something that passes this filter, and I'm going to send an email to Karen, and I've spelled my name wrong in case I don't go in and delete these, but I don't want this thing 24/7. I only want this if it happens between 7:30 in the morning and 5 o'clock at night. But I'm going to send it to Stephen. He can handle it all the time. So Stephen's going to get it always, including Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. I only want to get it during the week. So you can decide who's going to get any of this via email. A good use of emails is if you're not in the building and you want to know that a main controller or a terminal controller happened to go offline because of a storm or something like that, you could know that information before you go in on Monday. The controllers are still going to be making their decisions, assuming the storm didn't take the controller completely down and just dropped it off the communications. So you could get that kind of information remote before you get in, or maybe you want to know forced opens or held opens, or maybe you want to know if your security staff has arrived, so you build a filter with your security staff in, so you're looking for card activity admitted for those particular people between 8 and 10 in the morning or whatever the shifts are that they're covering. So flexible here on sending out email as well as to either one or multiple people. There's also a print function here, and you might say, well, why would I want to print anything that passes this filter? There used to be a time when everything that happened in an access control system went to a dot matrix printer. Now reports have been built into systems for the past 30 years, so there's no real need to send this to a printer and have it go on paper. So we've left the function in here for printing, but in fact, we've enabled it now so that you would not have printers listed here on the left, but if you have any NVRs or DVRs installed in your facilities that support the ATM, the automatic teller machine, or the point of sale register transactions, we can send our events out an IP port over to an NVR or a DVR that supports that activity, and you could link these events to your video. There is no driver or license fee by Sielox to give you that link to your video, and now you could link very effectively some event transactions where you want to link it to maybe real-time record your video as an example. That's a feature that's been built into our system for probably, well, ever since dot matrix printers went away. So you may not even realize that you have that flexibility and functionality into it. The server, Pinnacle server, just needs to be able to push that IP signal. It's really an ASCII text stream to the predefined NVR or DVR that would be listed here on the left, and then you can just decide at that point what you want to do with that event transaction. So that's sort of an overview of filters. Very, very powerful. You can filter anything, any group or object to any event, any type, and then apply it to your event viewers, apply it to your reports, or apply it to an assignment here and have other things functioning within the system. I'm noticing the time here, we're already up to 47 minutes. So I am going to open this up for Q&A.
Here's a question here.
I'm unmuting everyone. We've also had a question that came in. What are the good practices to name cardholders specifically for contractors or visitors? If you want to go in and find them very easily, I would suggest that in the cardholder screen, there is a selection field here called class. Your system comes defaulted with employees and visitors. So the two that are in caps, employees and visitors, are defaulted. You can then put in here contractors, temps, anything else that you would want for sorting and searching. And now you could run your reports and say, give me all of my contractors, and pull that list of your contractors, or give me all of my list of visitors, or all of my list of trainees, or whatever classification. But use the class list to filter that and use that for reports and group those people.
Are there any other questions?
Hey, Jeffrey, that was a good catch on the midnight, after the midnight. It should have been the next day.
Yeah, thanks. We've actually set that up in the past. That's how I do it.
That was a test. See if anybody was paying attention.
Last call. Any more questions or comments? Did y'all find this helpful? Well, we'll send a follow-up email for everybody that registered and attended. We appreciate your participation and look forward to communicating with you in the near future. Have a great afternoon.
One quick question.
Yep.
For those of us that missed the first one, for the devices, is that recorded anywhere?
Well, we're probably going to do another one, because I did an overview of the device setup tree, but I did not get really granular on it. So I have a few other things that we did not touch on today that I would probably put into that one. So look forward to another webinar in a few months where we'll get into that. And we're also going to make available some of these recordings on some of the stuff that we went through previously, like the cardholder screen. So we will make those available. We're going to break them down rather than having the entire long session like we did today. Try to break it down into individual things where we're focused on just cardholders on one, or just time zones on one.
All right, thank you.
Yep. And any other questions?